Socrates' idiosyncratic habits point the way to one of his most inspiring ideas, that we should find ways to build confidence in our own beliefs and not be too swayed by the opinions of others. There are great similarities between humans and sheep. We may not have wool on our backs or emit baaing sounds, but we often have an urge to follow our fellow creatures passively and have a horror of breaking away from the group. Why do we follow sheepishly behind other people, particularly important other people? Largely because we imagine they must know what they're talking about, and so we trot along behind them. Until 1998, Andrew Miller was a loyal employee at this company, British Biotech in Oxford, where he was Director of Clinical Research. But he began to think that his employers were being over-optimistic about the drugs they were developing, and that the shareholders weren't getting an accurate picture. He was forced to confront an agonizing question. Could it really be possible that he was right, even though all 11 members of the biotech board were against him? What does it feel like to be one man thinking that something that you're saying is right, and 11 other people saying, no, you're wrong? What does that feel like?
Well, it's a frustrating situation. It's, you know...
Is it terrifying as well?
Well, I wouldn't say terrifying, but it is preoccupying, and it does stop you sleeping. And you do, you know, your mind does start to play tricks on you that you know, do make you doubt your sanity to a certain extent, because, you know, one's previous experience in a democracy is overall, you know, the majority tends to have a certain amount of right on its side. And to be honest, in a lot of ways, I was at my wit's end. I used to sit in my office clutching my temples, thinking, have I got this wrong? You know, am I misinterpreting these things? I mean, the science and the technology can be thought of as complicated and confusing. But for me, it's my everyday work, and I understand it well. And you start doubting your own sanity. You think, why is it? Why do I think this, and these 11 guys who are on the board think differently?
Tell me a bit about the pressure to conform in a company like British Biotech.
Well, I think in all companies there are pressures to conform. There are cultures in all companies. You know, these are people who you like and who you're working with. And actually what you want to do is to, you know, appease them. They're your bosses. You are wanting to appease them. You are wanting to help them. You are wanting to work with them. You want to be friends with them.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
The first reason why it's hard to feel confident in Andrew's situation is that we tend to accept that people in authority must be right.
The European community has said this beef is utterly safe.
It's this assumption that Socrates wanted us to challenge, by urging us to think logically about the nonsense they often come out with, rather than being struck dumb by their aura of importance and air of suave certainty.
Start a fight to cut out the cancer of bent and twisted journalism in our country, with the simple sword of truth and the trusty shield of traditional British fair play, so be it.
The second reason we may hesitate to challenge other people is that we all know in our calmer moments how easy it is to make trouble for the wrong reasons, because we're feeling pig-headed or bloody-minded. Socrates was a nonconformist, and he made trouble for Athenians. But he wasn't motivated by an arrogant wish that everyone should do things his way, nor by the kind of willful eccentricity we might think of when we hear that he went around barefoot and never washed his cloak. What makes his nonconformity valuable is that it was motivated by the desire to find the truth and challenge lazy assumptions, rather than the wish to make trouble.
Well, this is roughly what Socrates would do. He'd walk down the main streets in the marketplace of Athens and go up to people and ask them large questions about the meaning of life, which is, in a way, a very fascinating thing to do and also a very irritating thing to do. If you ask people to explain their beliefs, they'll tend to react with aggression a lot of the time. We'll see what happens here. Excuse me, can you tell me, what do you think justice is?
That's a little hard to say.
It is. It's a good question.
I guess just making sure that everyone gets what is like right and fair for them.
Excuse me, can I just ask you a question? What do you think justice is? Parlez français?
Oui.
La justice. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez que la justice?
Going up to people and asking them to explain their beliefs is pretty scary if you're at all shy, like me. People look at you strangely. They imagine that if you ask them to explain why they're living in a certain way, that you know the answer, and are in some way claiming a position of superiority over them.
Non? Les philosophes grecs, ça vous intéresse?
Je connais pas trop la région, donc je suis en vacances, donc voilà.
Merci, au revoir.
Au revoir.
The French, who is supposedly the most philosophical nation, seem to be scoring very low on our Socratic test here, but we'll see what happens next.
Socrates had no such inhibitions. He preferred to be thought a bit over-intense and weird than allow his fellow citizens to continue to muddle along unthinkingly. He wanted all of us to scrutinize what we believed, even on our way to the shops.
Excuse me, sir. Can I just ask you, what do you think the good life is?
No, it doesn't know.
As you can probably imagine, Socrates annoyed a lot of Athenians in this way. But at the heart of his approach is an extremely egalitarian idea that everyone has the duty to reflect on their life, and that we are all surprisingly capable of doing so.
You have to be in order to be happy.
You need to have fun. You need to have people that love and care about you, and people to love and care.
We're not often expected to explain why we live the way we do. Socrates asks us to overcome our laziness and timidity, to work out what we really think, and stand by it once we have.
What do you think self-control is?
You're talking to the right person.
Self-control, being able to say what you mean at exactly the right time and get your message across.
Philosophy, in his hands, is an invitation open to us all to intelligent non-conformity.
We just think we're philosophers.
Why? What makes you philosopher?